Righty. Should we get started? Well, more people hopefully join.
Yes, let's
All
do
right.
it.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on our first in a series of webinars. And today we're talking all about the wonderful world of incentive travel and how to make it happen in today's market, which is a little more challenging than we'd all like. But before we jump in, I'd love to introduce who we are. For those of you who don't know us, I'm Mercedes Ibbett. I'm the Managing Director of EVT Incentive Marketing for Travel and Events Director. Between us, we have over 5 decades of experience in the industry. So let's not, split hairs on where those decades sit, but we know what we're talking about. EVT, we're a full service incentive agency. So our job is to help our clients really deliver these once in a lifetime amazing experiences based on them earning and being rewarded with them for changing behavior. So we're going to jump in straight away because we've only got a short time. And today is really about talking about how to deliver incentive travel in today's challenging market. We're going to allow some time for Q&A, so please feel free on the little Q&A section to pop your questions in. But let's get started, Pam. So first
Yay.
up, the world feels much less predictable today than it has. What do you think are the biggest things that have changed when we're planning incentive travel?
Yeah, probably the biggest shift has been destination is no longer the starting point. Today, it's all about where can we go and deliver exceptional experiences confidently with the least amount of risk associated with that. So when I'm looking at destinations and recommendations to put forward through to our clients for their incentive travel, the key factors I'm looking for is airline capabilities. How easy is it to get to that place politically, how stable is the destination, weather, supplier, and sort of infrastructure around that destination as well as entry requirements. How easy is it for us to get visas if we need to go into a destination as well? So there's been a real shift around not looking at those exotic destinations per se for our incentive trips. It's more about looking at a destination that's going to deliver an incredible experience while giving our clients the confidence to be able to deliver it within that destination.
And I think one of the things that is really challenging right now is a lot of clients want to hold off and book closer to. And our message is always very much about the longer you have, the better it is for everybody. So why is lead time becoming such a critical part in our planning process for travel, more now than ever before?
Yeah, lead time's really crucial. It's not only about it gives us the opportunity to have bigger savings when we're talking to our suppliers, but also to help us manage the risk. So the more lead time you have, the more it gives you that ability to sort of have those sort of strike points. So the earlier we get to quote and contract with our suppliers, it means, we get those reduced airfares with the airlines. It means we've got more availability. We can check with different sort of hotels and, access better rates. Obviously, the closer to a trip we are, the more the rates will increase, not just from an airline perspective, but also from a hotel perspective. And it also gives us the ability with a longer lead time to access all of those sort of value add unique experiences in a destination as well. So for instance, if I was building a dine around evening into one of those evenings on the trip, then I want to have the ability to be able to go to Michelin guided or Michelin star restaurants. And if I've only got 3 months to book that, the likelihood is I won't get into those sort of unique sort of restaurant experiences. So lead time gives us the power not only to negotiate, but it also gives us more flexibility and what we can build into our actual trips.
Yeah.
Obviously, the shorter the lead time, it sort of stumps a lot of that. So the shorter the lead time, we're finding we're trying to secure flights, get the right routing in place. Accommodation becomes a lot harder. Our on-ground supplier, we're a lot more challenged with trying to get the availabilities at the places that we want. And, ultimately that can sort of creep into the experience base of what we're trying to deliver as well. Obviously, we do work within shorter time frames, and it does, obviously create a lot of pressure through to our sort of supplier networks in that perspective. But, if I was to say the longer lead time you have, then it not only just saves you money, it also helps just protect the integrity of your incentive trip. So.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that happens when you're on a really short lead time is you don't often have the time to push back on your contract terms. And contracting is such a big part of protecting your trip when you're in really challenging times like now. And I know that, contracts with suppliers have always been incredibly important, but during COVID, even us that have been in business for 40 years learned a huge amount about what terms you need to have with your suppliers. And I think if you're on a short lead time with a project, you're just trying to secure the rooms that you want and the hotel you want. You're not really going to have the time to push back and negotiate out the contract terms that you want. So why should clients be paying more attention, or agencies that are delivering to their contracts before they sign them? Like, what are the things that can really protect you when you're looking at a potential disruption because of, war or flights or weather or whatever it might be?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, disruption can, and when it comes to contracts, disruption can be a minor inconvenience to us versus a major one when it comes from a pricing perspective. So, for us, particularly at EVT, some of our sort of key elements that I would like to, that we always need to consider when we're looking at our contracts is, what are the agreed conditions that we have in our contracts? Do they match what we initially sort of got quoted and agreed upon with that supplier? Currency and tax, particularly when you're dealing internationally, understanding if tax is included or not included on the pricing that you've received. As well as understanding sort of currency. So sometimes when you're dealing within Asia, you can be quoted US dollar, not the local currency. So understanding the conversions of that currency as well. Payment schedules, what sort of deposits, progress payments, all of those sort of elements are built into the actual contract. And does it give you the ability to be able to forfeit or postpone, a trip? And that tends to be around those sort of payment schedule sort of clauses. Understanding any price increase clauses that are written into contracts. Cancellation terms are probably really key. And when you're dealing with multiple suppliers, you have so many different cancellation terms. So it's trying to align them up so that in the planning stage, this is your trigger point. This is when I need to make a call on the attrition of when I need to release rooms or seats on flights. Any sort of government travel restrictions or airline disruption clauses, understanding if there are any of those in there and applying them if there isn't. And force majeure, which is probably a really key one. Force majeure basically protects. A lot of the time you'll find in contracts it's protecting the supplier, but you need to ensure it's also protecting you, know. So it's got to be about both parties. It's got to be that if there's an extraordinary event like COVID, war, and all of those things that we don't want to see happen in this world, that we're actually protecting and covering ourselves within our contracts for that.
Yeah. And term postponement would be the other really big thing, right? That we spent a lot of time working on, especially through COVID, and has happened again this year. I kept saying it feels a bit like deja vu
Yeah.
conversations with clients like, oh, can we postpone if we need to? And the clauses in the contract is key to ensure that you can with very minimal budget penalty.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, postponement, it is just making sure that, you've got that clause in there. You need to be able to shift and protect, that incentive trip for, and making sure you've got postponement in there. To me, a good contract isn't just about preventing disruption. It gives you the option when disruption happens. So all of those clauses are key to making sure that you can manage that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're already almost at the end of our 15 minutes. It
Oh,
flies
wow.
by. So one piece of advice for someone who's planning an
Mm.
incentive trip in the next 12 to 18 months, what would that be, Pam?
Well, you could probably go into my mind and would know this straight away, but my piece of advice would be start early in the planning and off your incentive trip, and the reason for that is, the most successful sort of incentive trips or reward trips are not about how much you sort of spend on it. It's about having the ability to be able to make the best decisions up early in the piece, because then you're going to deliver the most successful incentive trips.
Absolutely. And I think that there's probably a knee-jerk reaction when the world is hard to get
Mm.
around that incentive travel isn't an option, but it absolutely is. And I mean, we're seeing clients just looking at the risk profile of trips now and maybe choosing some destinations close to home, which is great for the Australian market and also into the Asian market for us.
Yeah.
But we also still have clients that have picked to go to Europe, and we're needing to reroute them, out, not go through the Middle East and route around. And while that's a longer travel time, and the actual travelers that are traveling understand that there's that impact and we're playing it safe and being risk adverse. So travel is still very much a key reward to use. We've just got to look at the risk profile, as you said, when you're planning out what you're going to do. And the earlier you do that, I mean, things are going to change. They can change 6 months, 3 months, 2 weeks before. But if you've got
Yeah.
the time and you've negotiated the terms in your contracts to protect you and your client, that's where it's going to have a lot more impact long term if something does happen.
Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely.
All right, so we've got a little bit of time for some questions if anyone's got any that they want to share. But Pam, I'm going to ask you the question that everyone always asks us in travel. What are you feeling is like the hot destinations at the moment where people are wanting to travel?
Well, I wouldn't say hot destination. It's like me being asked what's my favorite destination or
I know,
hot
it's an impossible
destinations.
question.
Europe is really hot at the moment as far as a destination. And I think, one thing we need to remember is that Australians are quite resilient when it comes to travel.
Yeah,
And, if we've got the correct routing and the correct way to get into destinations, then it's always, an option for Australians when it comes traveling. We have found a bit of a shift coming back into Asia, sort of Pacific region, and even back on shore in Australia. So, and that comes from a place of probably some organisations just playing it safe, with what's going on in the Middle East at the moment. So it just really depends, on the comfortability of a client and the risk that they want to take on a
absolutely.
destination.
All right, we have a multi-part question. So I'm
Mm.
going to
Oh,
read out each section and we can answer it. Okay, because there's three questions, which I love. Thank
wow.
you.
Okay.
What is the average lead time we're currently seeing in planning our programs?
Really varied, actually. So well, in a lot of cases, we're quite fortunate in the perspective that we're running the incentive program first and foremost. So the conversation around the reward trip is actually happening a good 12 months, if not more, out of trip. Sometimes that boundary can be a little bit pushed.
Yeah.
And we can experience, within a sort of 8 month to six month
6 months.
period pre-trip.
Well,
So
and we've had some experiences this year where a client that traditionally can plan 9 months out held off their decisions to plan to
yes,
4 to 5 months out, which is, it is what it is. It's tight, and they're, quite
correct.
high-end incentive trips. So it is varied, definitely. The next question, how are you managing client expectation when lead times are shorter than ideal? What strategies have been most effective in setting realistic expectations while still delivering a positive client experience? I can answer this one.
Oh,
This is one of the most challenging in what we
mm,
do, clients' expectations, because we're not going to deliver a subpar incentive trip because we only have
mm,
4 months, right? Like that's never going to be part of how we will deliver. But there are certain timelines that have to be met in order to be able to deliver at that level. So we spend a lot of time working with our client on timeline management decisions, the importance
mhm.
of key decisions that need to be made at what time and that cannot run over, and what that risk is. So it is a lot of timeline, expectation management,
Correct.
ensuring that they're on the journey with us. Travel will remain still one of the most complicated rewards to deliver. And we have to be really upfront about the pros and cons of holding off on some decisions. So that's a big thing. You also have to look at the delegate experience. At the end of the day, it's a reward. If they're only getting their tickets and itineraries a week before they travel, that's not a great experience. So we have to be super mindful of what decisions we need to make early. How quickly should we site? How quickly do we need to lock the program in? Hold the airline tickets so that we can also get our delegates to have a really great experience in their registration and receiving their tickets. While Australian travellers are resilient, travel is still something that can freak people out a little bit. So you don't want to be giving them an opportunity to be worried about what they're doing as well. So I
Yeah.
think that answers that, Pam.
Yes, it sure does.
Bailey is hitting us
Timeline.
with this. This is great. So, from a supplier perspective, what would you like suppliers to know when you are requesting information from them in these situations?
Oh, well, from a supply perspective, I think it always comes down to when we're initially starting the sort of quoting stage that we're at, what we're asking has actually been answered first and foremost, and then that follows all the way through. So a lot of the times we can find, when working with the supplier network, we're not necessarily we're going back and forth, and it can slow down the process, particularly with short lead times of, getting it through to contract and sign off, and then progressing with the organisation of it all as well. So, yeah, there's quite a lot, particularly around the supply network, that we can do more with.
Yeah, and Pam, if it's in the situation that we have got to postpone because of something happening, what is it that we want to get help with from our suppliers?
Yeah, we want to make sure that if we do have postponement that needs to be in that it's all reasonable, negotiation, with shifting cost and within the correct time frame that works for the supplier. It's not always about the client at the end of the day. It
We
has
really
to
want to work
be
together, don't we? When
correct. It's
this happens.
Yeah, definitely a partnership. It's about, reaching the right compromise that works for all. So, and being able to put that offer back on the table, back to the client
Yeah.
to be able to make that decision.
Yeah, and transparent open communication, I would say, is the other big thing, because postponing or cancelling any kind of reward, the more information we know, the better. But also, if that information isn't available yet, being really upfront about that so we can manage
Correct.
our clients' expectations, because it's a unique situation. You all need to be on the same page. Now we're at time, but hey, there's one more question. So I think we should do that and then we're going to wrap up.
Wow.
Are clients ultimately selecting destinations that align with their initial brief, or are their final choices significantly different from what they originally requested? It's an interesting question.
Love this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. When it comes to getting briefed by the client on destination. There's a whole heap of sort of points that we probably take into account. First and foremost, it's the objective and the budget we're trying to deliver, and what are they trying to deliver for that budget. So the options we're putting forward are options that we know are going to work with what they're wanting to deliver and the ultimate experience at the end of the day. So a lot of the time when it comes to that, what we're putting forward and what we're recommending that might be left field as a destination that we propose does end up confirming. Doesn't always stick with the same destination that they've always thought would be the destination of travel, because it's also about sort of showcasing, other things that are going to work within their budget and their guidelines and meet their objectives as well. And a lot of the time, it comes down to whether the destination can actually deliver on that.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty. Well, that is all we have time for. I've always wanted to say that. We've used up our 20 minutes very well, but thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Thank you, Pam, for sharing some insights.
Thank you.
We really hope that you've gotten some value out of what we've shared. We will be sending a summary through with a checklist for contracts, and also share out the recording. But if you'd like to keep the conversation going, please reach out to us. We love chatting all things incentive programs, incentive travel, and we do run a workshop that helps our clients that are looking to run something and don't know where to start versus businesses that are already running things and want to review. So always happy to run one of those. So enjoy the rest of your Thursday, the wrap up the end of the week, and thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye.